Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a very exciting video planned because it's going to be round one of me reading your horror recommendations. So if you missed it, in the month of September, I posted a post over on my community post, and I also posted an Instagram story asking all of you for horror recommendations for books that you think I might enjoy, and I got so many recommendations that I've decided to split this video into two parts, and so I'm going to be reading 4 of your horror recommendations in this video, and then 4 in another video coming a little bit later this month. And I'm so excited. This is a video that I've done consistently for the past 2 Octobers now, so I'll link down below the previous times that I've done these videos. Honestly, reading some of your recommendations has become one of my favorite reading vlogs to do on this channel. I've done them in the past for thriller books and horror books, so all the previous times that I've done this will be linked down below, but genuinely, they've become some of my favorite vlogs to make, and this one was no different. I had so much fun making this vlog. But before we do jump into the video, I wanted to say a huge thank you to a new sponsor on this channel that I'm so excited about because it's Brooklinen. I don't know if you know this, but high quality bed sheets can be so expensive, like so ridiculously expensive. Brooklinen gives you the quality and the comfort at an affordable price by cutting out the middleman. I love that Brooklinen was founded on the philosophy that people deserve simple and beautiful home essentials without that luxury markup. Brooklinen sheets are tried and true, over 100,000 5-star reviews, more than any other online bedding company. And the sheets don't just feel great, but they look great too, and I love that you can mix and match with over 20 different colors. And it's nice because instead of purchasing individual items, you can save 25% by purchasing a hardcore bundle. And this will include your core sheet set, extra pillowcases, and a duvet cover as well. Their best-selling luxe sateen sheets are the ultimate bedding upgrade. These sheets feature a luxurious 480 thread count and a slightly luminous finish. It's nice because they're heavyweight, but they're also buttery soft, and so it's perfect for all year long. And it's nice because, as mentioned, you could pick from over 25 different colors and patterns so that you can personalize it to your liking. Like this blue duvet cover that I got, oh my god, it's even more beautiful in person. I wasn't sure about the color when I picked it. I was like, ooh, I don't know, I'm taking a risk, but it looks stunning. It's so beautiful, and I love it against the stark white sheets. I just think it looks really classy and really nice, but there really is so much to choose from, so you can just personalize it as much as you want to. Last night was my first night sleeping in these bed sheets, and I felt such a difference. I felt like I was living a luxurious lifestyle, and I'm so excited that that's the case because I've been wanting to try out Brooklinen's sheets for literally the longest time, and I was worried like maybe they would be overhyped, but honestly, they're not. Like, they are as soft as you would think they are. They're probably even softer than you can imagine, and laying my head on that pillow was like I just entered another dimension. It was so soft. It like changed. It rocked my whole sleeping world. The Brooklinen sheets are for sure the most comfortable sheets that I've ever slept on, and I highly recommend. And Brooklinen is giving you $20 off any order of 100 or more when you use my code gabbyreads at checkout. Once again, that is $20 off any order that's $100 or more when you use my code gabbyreads at checkout. Click the link down below to get started, and thank you so much to Brooklinen for sponsoring today's video. So I just wanted to mention right up front that I am going to be reading a total of 8 of your horror book recommendations, and in this video I'm only going to be doing 4, and I'm saving the next 4 for a follow-up video. So these are all recommended a different number of times. Like, there are some books that were recommended a lot more that I'm going to be saving for another video. This just kind of worked out on how I was able to get them in time and things like that. For example, the first book that I'm going to be reading is Little Heaven by Nick Cutter because I was able to get the library book in time for this video. And this was recommended by 2 different people. Something that intrigues me about this one is that, you know, it is the same author as The Troop, which is one of my favorite horror novels of all time. And this is one of his earlier published books, so this is one that I have not gotten around to yet because I'm not sure how I'm going to like this one. This one is pretty long. It's almost 500 pages, which has always intimidated me a little bit about this one, but because it's Nick Cutter, I've always been very intrigued by it, and I honestly have literally no idea what it was about before jumping into this book, so very excited to give this one a shot. The next book that I'm planning to read for this video is The Ritual by Adam Neville, which was recommended by 3 different people. It's interesting to me because the 3 people that recommended this didn't really give any description or anything, so I don't know anything about what this book is about, and this is one that has me nervous to read for this video because of the fact that I previously read a book by this author last year and I had to DNF it about almost 300 pages in, I think, because the subject matter was getting to be a little bit too much for me to handle. So I am nervous to be reading another book from this author, but at the same time, I have been hearing a lot about The Ritual over the years, and my curiosity is piqued, and so I'm really excited to check this one out, and I'll let you know more about it when I know more about it. The next book that I'm going to be reading for this video is Gone to See the Riverman, which this is an extreme horror book, if I'm correct. This one was recommended by 4 different people, and this is a recommendation that I'm really excited about because one of my friends, Gabby, over from Ola Books, she was one of the ones that recommended it to me on Instagram, so that has me intrigued. And then also, my girl Nikki on YouTube recommended me this, and she was also the one who recommended me We Need to Do Something last year, which that turned out great. So in Nikki, we trust. And so after getting those 4 recommendations, I was like, okay, for sure, Gone to See the Riverman, it's happening. And I believe this is going to be my first experience with extreme horror. I don't really know what I'm getting myself into with this, okay? I have no idea. I don't even know what this is about. And then the 4th and final book that I'm going to be reading for this video is going to be the most recommended book to me out of all of the horror books because it's Pen Pal. Oh my gosh. I not only got this book recommended to me 7 times, just on that Instagram and that YouTube post, but also I've just been recommended this book a lot just in general in my life. Like a lot of people have recommended this one a lot to me over the years. I know my friend Mike recently read this book, I want to say like last year or the year before, and he told me that he really enjoyed it and he thinks it's something that I would like as well. So this is just one that's been a long time coming, you know? Like I don't know why it's taken me so long to read this book, but here we are. And this book is another one that I'm going in kind of not really knowing anything about it, not knowing what to expect, but also very excited to finally be reading one that has been recommended to me so much by you. So yeah, these are the 4 books that I'm planning to read for this round of Reading Your Horror recommendations. We have 2 that are kind of on the thick, chunky side, and then 2 that are kind of on the shorter side. So I'm very excited to give these all a whirl, and yeah, let's send you back a couple weeks. I started with Pen Pal, so let's fucking go. Hello, hi, what's up? It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I wanted to let you know that last night I did start on Pen Pal. I only got about 32 pages into it last night because my brain was not able to focus last night. You know, I thought this story was going to be very like straightforward. Like I haven't really heard anything about this story, but just from it being called Pen Pal and it having this kind of mysterious spooky cover, I assumed it was going to be some kind of like creepy pen pal scenario, you know, but I feel like this book is actually a lot more complex than I was expecting, and it was a little much for my brain to comprehend last night. So I think I might need to reread some of this beginning because I just read, you know, the back description and it says, in an attempt to make sense of his own mysterious and unsettling childhood memories, a man begins to reconstruct his past as the games and adventures of his youth become engulfed by a larger story. And so each chapter completes a different piece of the puzzle for both you and the narrator, and by the end of it all, you will wish that you could forget what he never knew. I'm sorry, what? So far, it's a little bit more complex than I was anticipating. Like, I don't know, I thought it was going to be a little bit more straightforward of like a simple horror story, but it's not looking that way so far. It looks like this is going to be something else. I know this is so dumb too, but I just wanted to point out that I feel like this book is using a very big vocabulary of words that I'm not used to, with at least with horror books. Like I feel like a lot of the times the horror books that I'm reading have a very limited vocabulary and very basic and kind of like easy to get into writing, but with this one I'm kind of like, whoa, like I'm kind of impressed by the style of writing and the words that this author is using. Like listen to this one sentence, okay? This is on page 7. This is right in the beginning. He says, "But what we notice in our lives, particularly as children, is so extraordinarily selective and contextualized that something ostensibly benign or self-contained can be transformed by a single detail into something terrible and pervasive." Like, aren't those words that are just kind of like words that I don't hear super often being used in horror books? I don't know if it's just me, but I think the writing is just really interesting so far. It's like really actually beautiful writing, and I like how this opening scene, it's like this little boy when he was 6 years old just asking people like, how far can you go into the woods? And it's like really creepy and really weird, but almost kind of like hard to follow at the same time. Like I'm kind of like, what is going on? Like I can't figure out if he's talking about a creature that he's seeing in the woods or if he's just talking about the trees, because he keeps referring to like how tall they are. Like they're just so tall, and I'm like, is he talking about the goddamn trees? Like I don't even know, but it's really interesting so far. It's really eerie. It has this really great atmosphere to it so far. I'm gonna keep reading it right now. I just, you know, it's midday. I just started a new load of laundry. I have the rest of my Dunkin' iced coffee drink that I got yesterday that I'm gonna drink. I also have a snack. And my friend Olivia is doing reading sprints right now on Patreon. So I figured, you know, I just finished editing a video. Now we're gonna jump back into Pen Pal. It's a little bit after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because I'm now on page 113. I feel like I'm almost about halfway through it, and I haven't been reading this entire time. I have been a little bit distracted by my phone, not gonna lie, but I also had to catch up on some editing and doing the laundry and other things. But besides the point, oh my gosh, this book has gotten so good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the first, chapter or two, I was kind of like, okay, like, I don't know, I don't understand what's happening. Like, I literally don't know what's happening. But then it's interesting because each of these chapters is kind of like a different memory from this character's childhood. All of the chapters kind of connect, or they're starting to connect in some way to give you like the bigger picture of what might have happened when he was a kid. And this shit is so fascinating. The second chapter in this book is called Balloons, and that's kind of like, that chapter was kind of what I was more expecting this book to be about, because it talks about the whole pen pal scenario and how when he was a kid, it was kind of cool because in their elementary school, they like blew up these balloons and then they attached these notes to them to like find a pen pal out in the world, which also, how weird is that? Like, I don't know if that would actually happen at elementary schools like in this day and age, because like there are some creepers out there and you don't want some random creeper to have like a photo of an elementary school kid and like a letter from them asking to be a pen pal. Like, I don't know, the whole thing is kind of weird, but I guess like back in the day I could see how this might have been a thing. But like, oh my gosh, the whole pen pal kind of chapter, like the setup of that was super creepy. There's also like a chapter that was kind of about his childhood cat that's like connected in a way that's super fucking creepy. And now I've started adding in tabs anytime I've like gotten spooked or anytime something has been kind of like, ooh, that's creepy, or like that's good. And I already have 5 tabs and I'm only like 100 pages in. Like, this shit is so interesting. I feel like this is just really, I don't know, well written to what really freaks me out in horror. I like that there was even one part that had to do with spiders that was just written in such a vivid and like creepy way that I was like, ugh! Like, it really got under my skin. Like, I hate anything to do with spiders in horror books. Like, no, absolutely not. But this shit is so good. Like, it's so interesting. The ending of that 3rd chapter that I just read, like, literally gave me chills. Like, that was so disturbing and unsettling, and I just feel like this is such a unique horror book. Like, I never would have expected it to be written like this, and I never would have expected anything that's happening in this. Like, I don't know, I feel like I can't predict really where it's going, and that makes me excited. So I'm gonna continue reading probably maybe for another hour. I don't know, we're gonna be going to the movies here pretty soon. We're gonna be seeing the movie Bros in theaters tonight. It's that cute gay rom-com that just came out, and so that is the plan tonight. Then we'll probably have dinner at some point later, and I don't know, I'm hoping to finish this one tonight because it's so freaking good. But also a part of me is kind of afraid to like read this in the dark tonight, especially as I get towards the end, because I don't know if it's gonna like ramp up on the spooky shit. But I was just laying here reading that 3rd chapter thinking, oh my god, if I was reading this at night, like, I would be so freaked out right now. So that's where I'm at, but loving it. Like, this could be a 5-star. Like, that's how much I'm loving it so far. Hello, how's it going? It's the next afternoon, and last night I didn't update this vlog very well, but me and my sister ended up seeing the movie Bros in theaters, and it was so freaking cute. Like, it was such a heartwarming movie, and it made me so happy. And I didn't have any time to read last night after I got home because me and my mom ended up hanging out pretty much the whole night. But this morning I finally finished reading Pen Pal, and like, bitch, are you kidding me? Like, see, this is exactly why I love doing these kinds of videos where I read your horror recommendations, because this was a 5-star book. This is a new all-time favorite. Like, what the fuck is this? I think this book is completely different than what I was expecting, when I initially started this, because I had literally no idea what this was even going to be about. And I love the fact that this book is basically just 6 chapters. There's only 6 chapters, and each one of the chapters is kind of like a different childhood memory of his that he's trying to figure out like what actually happened. And each one of the chapters is so like weird and unique, and they kind of almost read like they're their own short stories, but then they all connect in a really like interesting way. Like, you can start to feel that they're all starting to connect the further you read, and it's so fascinating and so well written. There are so many moments, like, I tabbed every time that I felt kind of like creeped out, or I was like, ooh, that's so weird. And look at how many tabs there are. Like, it is unbelievable like how well this book is written. Like, every time we would near the end of a chapter, it would just get so freaking creepy. I don't even know how to describe this kind of horror writing, but I feel like this kind of horror is my favorite kind of horror, and I don't really know what this is. It's kind of like the feeling that you just feel like somebody's watching you, or you feel like somebody's observing your life in a really like creepy way, but it's almost like these chapters are written in a way where it almost feels like a contemporary story at times. Like, it kind of of feels a little bit slow. Like each one of the starts of the chapters, I was like, wow, this is like a lot of detail that I don't really feel like I need. But at the same time, as you'd get closer to the end of the chapters, things would just start to happen that were kind of creepy, or like you can't really explain what's going on. And then it's not until like the end of the chapter that something gets revealed that you're like, oh, you just feel this like feeling of dread, or like this fucking creepy like goosebumps down my back feeling at the end of every chapter when you kind of realize like what was going on. I don't even know how to explain this. It was just so good. Like, it was so well written, so fucking creepy, like genuinely so creepy. My heart was like racing towards the end. And I can see how some people might not enjoy this one as much, because I don't feel like this book gives you every single answer to things that are going on, and maybe that frustrates some people. But I'm the kind of person who really appreciates some kind of like mystery and ambiguity to like whatever the horror aspect of the book is. But I personally think this ending was like so well done. It was just so unsettling. And like this entire book just gave me this feeling of like dread and just like, ugh, it was so good. Like, wow, this was so unexpected. Like, I had no idea. So I love that. I love that we're starting with a 5-star book. We're off to a great start. This is amazing. I think the next book that I'm gonna plan to start for this video is The Ritual by Adam Neville, and this is one that I do have the audiobook checked out from my library, as well as this physical copy checked out from my library. So I think I'm gonna get started on this one. I think I'm gonna take a walk to my library right now because it's about like 2:30 in the afternoon. I just got a notification that one of my library holds came in, so I'm like, okay, that's a sign from the universe that I should go to the library this afternoon, right? It's starting to feel like a little bit fallish outside, you know, like there are definitely some leaves that are starting to fall, and it looks really beautiful out. Like, it's still a little bit too warm probably to be wearing, you know, a jacket like this, but at the same time, like, I don't care. But I just want to be out in it, you know, like I just want to be out in the nature today. So we're gonna take a walk to the library, pick up my library hold, and then while I'm walking, I'm gonna start listening to The Ritual on audio. Howdy, how's it going? Been a couple of hours, as you might be able to tell. It's about 10 o'clock at night right now, and I had a lovely, you know, afternoon. I went on a cute little walk to the library. I picked up my library holds. I went to the taco truck for dinner. It was fabulous. And I also, while I was on my walk, I was able to get up to page 118 of The Ritual. I listened to about like 25% of the audiobook or so I feel like in a way I've barely made a dent. Basically, this story is following these 4 guys who, they went to the same university, so they were college friends, and now they're taking this trip into the Scandinavian wilderness. And tensions are kind of high because they're feeling like they're not really connecting in the way that they used to. And I'm not gonna lie, with the audiobook, with it being 4 different guys, there's only one narrator, and for some reason it was like really hard for me to differentiate the 4 dudes. And I don't know how important it is gonna be like going forward to know the difference between these characters very much, but so far I'm finding it a little bit difficult to tell the characters apart because they all kind of read and sound very similar. But these 4 dudes, you know, they're on this trip together and they very quickly get lost in this forest. Super creepy. It honestly is kind of reminding me quite a bit of The Ruins. Like, it's giving me that energy so far, but it hasn't gone nearly like as unhinged, at least not yet. You know, like, who knows what's to come. But what's creepy about this is that it's starting to hint at the fact that there might be some kind of creature or like beast out in these, you know, forest woods with them, and that's the aspect of this book that is intriguing me the most, because the idea of like something being out there with them is just absolutely terrifying. And the way that it's written with like them being in the woods, it's just very mysterious so far, and it has a really good atmosphere going, even though I personally don't really care about the characters that much so far. But I am also very curious to see like what the heck is actually happening in these woods. And I think my plan for the night is just to pop in my AirPods, listen to more of this audiobook and hopefully get a decent chunk of this tonight. I don't want to stay up like too late tonight because I had a really late night last night. Like I did not sleep well. Like I was literally almost awake until 5 in the morning. Like it's been a long time since I had insomnia that bad. So I'm not gonna try to stay up too late tonight. I'll probably listen to this audiobook for like a good 2 hours and then call it a night and go to bed. So I'll update you in the morning with thoughts when I have them. Hello, good morning. It's actually October 1st this morning, like spooky October, it's here, finally. And this morning I have, I've had a few things going on this morning. I had the It Girl live show this morning with Kayla and Kat and Naomi, and it was so much fun. And I wanted to let you know that last night I got all the way up to page 315. I got like 75% of the way through the audiobook, and I'm sad to say that I'm really not enjoying this one. I'm really not. I just don't like it very much. Right now I'm feeling like it's in like 2-star territory, but also because I'm so close to the end and because this was a book recommendation from you, I want to give it the fairest chance possible, and so I do want to finish this book. But I just really am not a huge fan of the way that this book is written. I just feel like it's so like drawn out and boring. It does kind of remind me of The Ruins in that way, because I know I compared this to The Ruins earlier with like, oh, you have this group of friends, it's like out in the forest and things get weird, and it's definitely reminding me a lot of that, but it has like a similar writing in the sense that it just drags on and on and on. Like how many times are we going to hear about, these guys talking about how like hungry and like thirsty they are and they're just lost and they can't figure out what's going on. It's just very repetitive in that way. I also feel like all these 4 men are like blending together. Like it's really hard for me to distinguish their individual characters because they all just feel so similar and I just don't care about any of them because of it. I also just I hate the way that the women are written in this book, and I mean there's not even a single woman mentioned on page in this book until more than halfway through it. But once the women are on the page, it's just kind of like obnoxious. Like, how sometimes you can just tell that a book has been written by a man, like just by the language he uses to describe women. Like that's the kind of feeling I get with this book. And I know that this book wasn't published super recently, but it was published in like 2011, and I'm just like, bro. So I'm just like really not a fan of the way that he writes women, and just like the way that this book is written in general just isn't really doing anything for me. I feel like it might just be this author, Adam Neville, because he's also the author who wrote No One Gets Out Alive, which is a book that I actually read last October, and I ended up DNFing it after like 200 pages because it was just too much for me to handle personally. That was like one of the only horror books that I've ever DNF'd because the subject matter and like the content in the book was like too much for me to read in a way that was like reading about violence against women can be really hard for me. And so I feel like maybe this author just in general just isn't for me because clearly his writing style just never makes me excited about reading horror. Like he's just not the author for me, I think. But yeah, like I said, because I only have this tiny chunk left, it's about 100 pages left of the book. I feel like I am going to try to finish it up on audio this morning. I'm probably going to try to figure out a food situation because it's almost noon right now and I haven't eaten anything. Okay, hi, I've gotten food. I decided to go to this like local little coffee spot that I've never been to before, just out of curiosity, and the fucking line was so long. I was waiting in the line for like 15 to 20 minutes because they were just like busting out orders. So I'm like, okay, this shit better be good, right? So I got my classic, iced caramel macchiato, because this is like my go-to drink whenever I go to try a new coffee place just to see what's up. So like, let's try it and hope it's good. Oh, that is yummy. I love it. And then I also tried one of their bacon breakfast sandwiches. Let's see how, oh, okay, this is tiny. This is a lot smaller than I was expecting. I feel like a lot of times with like breakfast sandwiches, you never really know what you're gonna get, until you get it. But oh my god, this looks amazing though. It's like an egg and bacon on this little like English muffin. This is very solid. It's not like my favorite breakfast sandwich in town necessarily, but it's good. Alright, well, I just finished reading The Ritual, and, as expected, I didn't really enjoy this one. I think I'm probably going to end up giving this one 2 stars. I feel like towards the end, there was something that was kind of, like, really creepy happening that I was kind of getting excited about, but then I also feel like it just never quite went, like, where I wanted it to go. I feel like this is a story that could have had a lot of potential for me depending on where that ending part went, but I just wasn't a fan of this one, you know? I wasn't a fan of the writing in this book, and overall, the story just wasn't that interesting, especially for something that's over 400 pages. Like, I don't think it needed to be over 400 pages, but at the same time, I am kind of curious to check out the movie adaptation of this on Netflix, because I do think something like this is a story that could work better as a film. And I've heard such mixed things about the film too. I've heard that some people who did not like the book ended up really liking the movie, or some people are saying the movie is like just as not as good as the book. And so I don't know. I'm still curious to kind of give it a shot, maybe. But yeah, what a bummer. I just really feel like it's this author, honestly. Like, this author's writing is just not for me. And I think I'm going to get started on Gone to See the Riverman, which I'm kind of nervous to read this one. This one is only 160 pages, so I don't think it would take me too long to read this. But I'm also incredibly nervous to read this because not only do I not really know anything about what this book is about, I've been kind of like trying to avoid seeing anything about what this one's about, but I also do know that this book is extreme horror, and I don't know if I've read anything yet that is extreme horror. So like, this is gonna be a total, like, you know, I'm just gonna dip my toe into the extreme horror genre and see how it goes. I'm scared, you know, because I'm quite a little bitch sometimes when it comes to these things, but like, we'll see if I can handle it, you know, and I'll give you more of an update when I know what the story's about. Right, hello, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon right now, but I wanted to update because I am 64 pages into Gone to See the Riverman, and I'm not gonna lie, so far, nothing too extreme of horror has happened so far. I mean, there was one scene that was kind of a little like, ugh, a little bit gross, but it was nothing like too crazy yet. But I can tell that we're starting to reach a point in the book where things are probably going to start getting a little bit more intense, so that's why I wanted to update you now. I thought the beginning of this book, I'm not gonna lie, I struggled to get into it a little bit. It's been 2 hours, and I've only read 60 pages, because for some reason, the beginning, it was just like not interesting me very much. Like, it took me a second to get into, but at this point in time, I'm really starting to enjoy it. Basically, we're following this woman named Lori, and she has this obsession with this man named Edmund, who's like a serial killer. I cannot understand for the life of me like what their relationship is exactly. Like, I don't know if she like knew him before he went to prison, or if she got obsessed with him because he went to prison for like all these murders, but she writes him these letters, and then he also writes her back. He writes her back these letters, and they start to form this connection, and it's unclear to me if she has genuine like feelings for him, or she's actually obsessed with him, or if she's just trying to get a story out of him so that she can like, you know, expose him and kind of like sell a story about him. I feel like her intentions are just all over the place, because she says things that are really weird, almost in a way where she like really admires him, and I can't tell if she's like serious about it or not. So that's kind of interesting. But right in the beginning of this book, you know, we see her go to visit him in prison, and she's kind of like, you know, they talk about their exchange of letters and how he's like, you're not like the other girls, and he really seems to admire her, and he talks about how he has all these fans. And I feel like this book is definitely going to have some kind of commentary about how weirdly obsessed people get with true crime, and we kind of like glamorized these serial killers. I feel like this conversation has come up a lot recently too, just like talking about it with my family, being like, you know, they just made a Netflix Jeffrey Dahmer show, and the show is all about him and his life and his childhood, and you know, the way that we glamorize these serial killers in society, it's just kind of disgusting. And I feel like this book is definitely going to be touching on that a lot. And yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, Edmund is totally gross and disgusting, and the way he talks just to her and the way he writes in his letters, because we do get to see some of his letters, it's just very disturbing. When she visits him in prison, he asks her to do this like mission for him, and he asks her to go down to this place and retrieve this key out of a chest and then give it to the Riverman. And he's like super vague about it. It's very strange. And so she's like, oh, okay, like I guess I'm gonna have to do that, because she wants him to trust her for whatever reason. And so now this story is about how she's taking this trip with her sister, who wants to tag along, and they're both gonna be going down to this place by the river and trying to get this key and take it to the Riverman. It's all very like I don't know, strange and weird. There's really good atmosphere in this book, and I just got to a scene where it starts to feel like things are gonna really start changing. I also do like the writing because I like that we get, you know, the present day when these things are happening, but then we also do get to see some of the letters that her and Edmund have exchanged to kind of get a little bit more backstory on them. And then we also do get kind of glimpses from her childhood with her sister, and, you know, it kind of helps us to see why they are the way they are now. And I'm really intrigued to find out, you know, like what happened in their childhood eventually that made them the way that they are now. I'm just really intrigued by this story in general and what this guy, like what's going on with this serial killer dude, and like what does he have in store for them, or like what is he planning to do? I don't know. I'm just really intrigued, and I feel like we're gonna hit a very intense point here, so I'm gonna continue reading. We're probably gonna be eating dinner very soon here. It's gonna be like a nice fancy dinner, you know, with like steaks and asparagus, and I'm gonna make these mushrooms that I made that were like the HelloFresh mushrooms, because they were so freaking good. It's about 10:30 at night, and I've had a really great night. You know, I ended up doing the movie night with my Patreon for my best friend's exorcism earlier, and it was so much fun. Like, even though most of us didn't really end up enjoying the movie too much, it was still so much fun to watch it with a group of people, and it was just such a great night. And then shortly after that, I finished Gone to See the Riverman, and you know, I survived my first extreme horror book experience, and I understand, I get it now. The first half of this book was interesting because the first half I was like, you know, this isn't that bad. Like, this feels like any other horror book that I typically read, and I don't really understand what's so extreme about it. And then the second half of the book I was like, oh. And I feel like at least with this book for extreme horror, it's not even necessarily like the graphic violence that's so much worse. It's just the subject matter is something that makes me so freaking uncomfortable to read, and I just had this feeling of like dread in my stomach the entire time I was reading this book, and it really went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, because it's not even so much about like this woman and this serial killer, it's more about like this woman's life, and you know, kind of seeing, like, learning about what's been happening with her and to her and what she's done. And it's just oh my god, it was a lot. Like, I would definitely look up trigger warnings for this book if you're interested, but you're kind of like nervous about the different kinds of topics that this book dives into, because I went into this kind of completely unaware of like where this story was going and what was going to be happening in it, but it was like a wild ride. Like, I was sucked into this story. I could not put it down, and it's disturbing and gross and just like bleh. But I also, at the same time, like, I don't know, there was just something about it. Like, I really enjoyed reading this, and I feel like fucking sick for even saying that because of how disturbing this book is. And to be honest, I was never sure if extreme horror was gonna be like my thing or not, because I was never sure about what I could personally handle in books. There was just something about this that was so fascinating. It was like I couldn't pull my eyes away from the page, but at the same time, this is not something that I would just go around like lightly recommending to people as something to read, because this was some truly dark, fucked up, like disturbing shit, you know? Like, it's extreme horror for a reason. That label's there for a reason, because this was disgusting and disturbing and gross and just like god awful, but it was also just so good. And like, some of the stuff that happened towards the end of the book were just so like, ugh, they were just so well written and like creepy and eerie and unsettling. I just felt so genuinely disturbed and like grossed out while I was reading this, and I'm sure that that's the point of this book, you know, like that's the point of extreme horror. And so, I mean, at this moment in time, I'm debating on my rating, but because it's like, it's hard to rate something like this, you know, like I don't know how to go about rating a book like this, like I just don't know. But I feel like in my gut, I want to give this like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't like a perfect 5-star book for me, because it definitely had some like kind of slower bits in my opinion. I mean, this book is only like 160 something pages, and it took me nearly like a lot of hours today to read this because I kept getting distracted, and I was like, I don't know, like some parts of it were just kind of a lot to read, to be honest. And the book ended up being about some things that I wasn't expecting it to be about, and those things were very difficult to read. So yeah, it was quite an experience reading this, but I'm glad that I finally did, to be honest. Like, I'm glad that I finally have read an extreme horror, and so I kind of get the gist of like what's going on there. And you know, I think I would be willing to check out more extreme horror in the future. But once again, this is not something like, I don't want to be like encouraging people to go and pick up this book, because you know, this is some serious like fucked up shit, okay? And it's not like the typical like fucked up shit that I read about in horror. This is like a different level. But yeah, wow, ugh, what a story. This is like the worst bedtime story. Like, oh my god, now I'm just gonna have freaking nightmares. Good morning, hi. So yeah, last night, that book, Gone to See the Riverman, totally gave me a freaking nightmare, and it was very unpleasant. So that book is definitely affecting my brain and my subconscious. But this morning I'm hoping to start on Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. I do have to film a video this morning, and so I need to like straighten my hair and like put on makeup and stuff. And so while I'm doing that, I thought I would start listening to the audiobook for this one. And this is, you know, I know Nick Cutter, you know, he's one of my favorite authors because he wrote The Troop, and this is just one of his books that I have not yet read. And to be honest, I don't even know what this is about. Like, I haven't even cracked it open. But also I thought it was so cute. We made pumpkin spice lattes this morning at the house, and my sister finally figured out how to make the what's it called, the cold foam kind of thing that Starbucks does when you like whip the heavy whipping cream with vanilla extract and a little bit of like the pumpkin creamer, and it makes that like amazing thing on top. And then she also put pumpkin pie spice on top, and freaking, it's life-changing. It's so good. So that's pretty incredible. But yeah, I'm gonna get started on the last book for this video, Little Heaven. I hope it's amazing. Hello, it has been a number of hours since my last update. It's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and today I got so much done. I mean, I curled my hair, I filmed the video I needed to film, and then I also like went through my closet and I got a bunch of clothes gathered that I'm wanting to donate and get rid of, because I feel like every season it's good for me to kind of go through my closet and slim it down as much as I can. I also went through my bookshelves to look for like books that I'm wanting to unhaul soon. I feel like I just did a major like spring cleaning, but for the fall time, which was really nice. I love getting more organized, getting rid of some things that I don't need anymore. It just feels really good. But the whole day I've been listening to Little Heaven on audio pretty much while I've been doing everything today, and I'm currently on page 206. I got 44% of the way through this audiobook, and I'm surprised that I'm only this far in, even though I've literally been listening to this all day. But I'm not gonna lie, you know, the very beginning of this book, I struggled through the beginning of this. Like, I actually almost considered DNFing it for a while there, but I started to look up reviews, and a lot of the reviews said things don't really get interesting till about 20% in, but then it starts to get really interesting. So I was like, okay, I'll hold off. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad that I waited a little bit, because the beginning of this book was so boring, in my opinion. We're just following these 3 different guys who are all priests, and we kind of get like a lot of their, I don't know, like a lot of their backstory in the beginning. I know maybe it sounds stupid, but I didn't really realize how much religion was gonna play a part in this book. I mean, maybe I should have realized that, because heaven is like literally in the title of the book. But you know, once again, I jumped in knowing absolutely nothing, so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Yeah, I just found the beginning of this book to be so incredibly slow, because most of the beginning takes place in the year 1965, and we kind of get to see a lot of this town's history and like the history of the people that are going to be involved in this story. And something that I'm not a huge fan of is the fact that this book uses the N-word at times. And I know it might be a situation where it is a white character using that word, and we're not supposed to like that white character. Like, it's meant to be used in a certain way, I guess, but I'm also like, okay, I don't like that because this author is white and this book came out in 2017. So like, what's up with that? I was not a huge fan of that, and it almost like immediately turned me off of this book because I was like, okay, what the hell? The beginning was just so slow. It takes a long time to go through these flashbacks in the beginning. You know, it seems like most of this story is jumping back and forth between 1980 and then like 1965, but a lot more of this book is taking place in 1965 than I was anticipating, and so it feels a little bit historical in a way, which is like not the most fun thing for me. I also didn't realize that this was heavily going to deal with this religious cult that's kind of taking place in this town called Little Heaven. I feel like I have talked about this too recently, how I'm just not the biggest fan of reading about cults anymore, especially like more recently, and especially when it's like a religious cult. I don't know what it is, like they used to fascinate me, and I used to like reading books that were about cults, but nowadays I don't really enjoy it as much as I used to. And so I'm not the biggest fan of like what's happening with this cult, but also because this book is written by Nick Cutter, you know, he's the author of The Troop. I feel like this book is written in a way that's like so gruesome and so disturbing. Like there's been so many disturbing scenes that involve like maggots and bugs and those like being in people's like bodies and skin, and like those scenes have been really disturbing for me. There's also now at this point in time, you know, now that I'm a bit more into the book, there's something kind of disturbing happening with this like Little Heaven. It's not just a religious cult, but it seems like there's something that's like not human, almost in a way where it's starting to feel a little bit like sci-fi-ish. And like from a lot of reviews, that's what I've heard, is that this starts to lean a little bit more towards like the sci-fi side of things, like later on in the story. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm intrigued at this point in time because it has really great ambiance right now of like there's something stalking them in the woods, and like there's something more going on than just this cult, you know? But at the same time, the aspects of like reading about the cult, because like a lot of it is about the cult, and the cult is just kind of really boring in my opinion, or at least it's, I don't know, it's slow moving. It also has been kind of cool. I mean, I've been listening to it on audio, so I haven't really gotten to appreciate it, but there are some like really cool drawings throughout the book I've noticed just flipping through these pages. So we do get a few cool moments like that where there are some drawings, but I don't know. So far this book is going fine for me. I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would, but at the same time, I went into this not really knowing what it was about, so maybe that's on me. But so far, it's feeling very mid for me, but I will check in later with more thoughts. I think I'm just going to continue listening to it quite a bit this afternoon. Alright, hello friends, it's the next day, and I wanted to give you an update because I got all the way up to part 5 of this book, which puts me at about page 280, and I'm sad to say that I think I am going to end up DNFing this book. You know, I really gave it my best to give this book a fair shot, and I think reading 280 pages of it, which is about a little bit more than half, is a fair enough shot, because I just don't think this is the book for me, which makes me sad because it is Nick Cutter, and I think his writing is really good, and this book is really creepy in a lot of ways, but I am literally bored to tears with this kind of religious cult. I'm not a huge fan of reading about cults, as I've mentioned, but also just like religion in general and horror. I'm very particular about the kind of religious horror that I like, and sometimes I think it can be a little bit boring, which is what's happening with this one for me. And as curious as I am about like the sci-fi elements of this book and like where it could end up going, I just don't care enough to find out. And I'm sorry, and I feel like really shitty for wanting to DNF this, but at the same time, I feel like I have to DNF this for my sanity because this book is so long, and the idea of picking up this book again and getting back into reading it is making me like not want to read. And the last thing that I need in the month of October right now is to get into a reading slump with how many books I'm trying to take on in the month of October. So I just think realistically, the best thing for me right now is just to DNF this and move on. That's not to say that maybe I'll never come back to this book, but honestly, I just don't have any interest in it like whatsoever, and just to prevent myself from rating this super low, like I don't see myself giving this anything more than 2 stars at the end of the day, so I'm just gonna save us all from a negative review and just give it a DNF for now. And so I guess that's kind of, you know, a wrap on this video. I'm sorry to end it on such a like weird note of like me wanting to DNF the last book for this video, but you know, besides the two kind of a bummer books that I had in this video, like The Ritual and Little Heaven, ended up not really being my thing, I still consider this video to be a massive success because of how much I loved Pen Pal and Gone to See the Riverman. Like, I definitely found two new favorite horror books in this video, so that's exciting, especially because I don't know if I ever would have read Gone to See the Riverman if it wasn't for this video. You can definitely tell that I have kind of a preference for like the short horror because, you know, as I always say, I don't think there's any reason for a horror book to be that long because you can do a lot of creepy things in horror in a short amount of time. But even though these books were two kind of like misses for me, I still had so much fun finally getting around to reading these books, you know, because these both in particular have been on my TBR for a while now. Like, these are two books that I always hoped I'd eventually get around to, so I'm glad that at least now I know. I also am planning a part 2 for this video of reading more of your horror recommendations, and while I'm not going to spoil the 4 books that I'm going to be reading for the part 2, I will say that I'm really excited for the 4 books that I have chosen because the first 2 books are 2 books that I've also had on my TBR for like such a long time and I've always been wanting to get around to, and so now you're going to be the ones to push me to read them. And then the other 2 are horror books that I've never even heard of before, but I read the premise and I was like, this sounds literally so good, like how have I never heard of this? And so I think the second round should be equally interesting, I would hope, of, you know, me getting to experiment with more horror books. Let me know, of course, if you've read any of these 4 horror books, how you felt about them, or if you plan to pick up any of these books now. I would love to know that as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching as always. I hope your October is going well so far, and I can't wait to make even more videos and more content for this month. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!